Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is McKenna Sturgeon. I am the Training and Marketing Specialist for the Colorado Municipal League. I'd like to welcome you to the next installment of our 2022 Statehouse Report webinar. Today, CML's advocacy team will be providing updates on important developments at the state capitol. This webinar will be recorded and available to view next week. We will send that link along with the written Statehouse report. If you would like to subscribe to that, you can do so at cml.org. It can be found by hovering over the Publications and News tab, then clicking on the periodical subscription request button in the third column. Please feel free to reach out to me at msturgeon at cml.org if you have any trouble doing that. I'll go ahead and drop that in the chat as well so that you're able to click on that. Now, for those of you new to GoToWebinar, you should see a control panel to the right of your screen. This is where you can ask questions. We encourage you to ask those throughout the presentation. We'll be answering questions at the end of each lobbyist's update. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Megan Dollar to get us started. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, McKenna. I'm Megan Dollar here with Legislative Advocacy Manager with the Colorado Municipal League. And I want to note that in the room here, as well as on your screen, we have our legislative and policy advocates, Heather Stauffer, Jacqueline Turway, and Megan McKillop. So excited to catch you all up on what's been going on this week and what we're going to work on next week. And with that, Heather, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
All right, thank you, Megan. So the first bill I want to talk about is Senate Bill 2. This is Resources for Volunteer Firefighters. This was a Wildfire Matters interim committee bill. We supported the original text of the bill. They added on an amendment in committee that changes what was a grant program in the Department of Public Safety for firefighter mental health services into a multiple employer health trust, which employers would be mandated to pay into. Unfortunately, we didn't see the amendment wasn't run by us ahead of time, and we did talk to the sponsor about it, and we had a meeting with the proponents, and they are going to draft an amendment that would remove the mandate on employers to pay into the trust. We still have to see what that actual language looks like on that, but I think we're moving in a good direction there. The bill passed out of the Senate Local Government Committee with the amendment on a 3-2 vote, and it's waiting in appropriations. The next bill I'll talk about is House Bill 1086, the Vote Without Fear Act. This is currently being heard on seconds in the House as we speak. The bill prohibits open carry of a firearm within 100 feet of a Title I, so a state and county polling location or drop box. We don't have a position on this bill because it doesn't impact municipal elections, and municipalities can already regulate open carry. This would only impact state elections. However, municipal facilities often host drop boxes. As written, the bill makes exceptions for police officers to open carry, but not for security guards. And recognizing that many municipal facilities sometimes have armed security guards on site, we worked with the Secretary of State's office and the sponsors to create an amendment which exempts security guards in facilities as well, so we can continue to host those drop boxes for Title I elections. That has gone on the bill. They are currently as I mentioned, discussing the bill on seconds right now, but I assume that that will pass second reading. The next bill I want to talk about is House Bill 1097. This is the dissolution of special districts. This is the bill that extends the power of dissolution of a special district to counties, just like municipalities have. We added an amendment on in committee that says if a special district is in 85% within the boundaries of municipality, the county needs our consent to begin the process of dissolution. That was added on, and so we are in support of the bill, and that will be heard in the Senate Local Government Committee on Tuesday of next week, and we'll testify in support of that. House Bill 1151, this is the turf replacement program. This bill charges the CWCB to develop a statewide program to provide financial incentives for the voluntary replacement of turf with water-wise landscaping. Local governments who choose to do so can apply to the CWCB to help finance either in-house turf replacement programs that they already have, or contracting with a partner like Resource Central. The bill also directs the state to contract with third parties to provide those services in which areas where local governments do not have programs. We are supporting that bill. The bill will be heard on Monday in the House Ag Committee, and we will be there to testify. Senate Bill 15, this is the Douglas County on the Urban Drainage Flood Control District. This bill adds a seat on the board of the Urban Flood Control District for Douglas County, and the current law states that has to be a chief executive of a municipality with a population under 100,000, I believe. We are supporting that bill. This passed seconds on the House floor today, and so we will be continuing our support of that bill into thirds and final passage. Senate Bill 131, this is Protect the Health of Pollinators and People. This is going to be up in the Senate Ag Committee on Thursday of next week. Our board did vote to take a support position on this bill. It removes preemption language around local government's regulation of pesticides and allows municipalities who want to require additional regulations around the use and application of pesticides. The bill will have some big changes when it gets to committee. They're going to remove, so the preemption language is just a very small part of this bill. There's also language around banning pesticide use on school grounds. There's a study that the DNR has to do around pollinator health. There's a pilot program for non-coated seeds for farming, among others. And so I believe that the language around schools, the prohibition on the schools from using pesticides, will be taken out, as well as the pilot program for non-coated seeds. We're still hearing some concerns from members of the ag community around ag use, even though ag has an exemption in the bill, as does marijuana. But there's still some concerns. So we're working with the sponsors to address those, and we'll add amendments if need be on that bill. I will mention Senate Bill 136. This is special district governance. This is going to be up in the state local government committee on Tuesday of next week. And this bill is one that our board took a neutral position on. The bill extends the powers of initiative and referendum to the electors of a special district and makes specific requirements around developer affiliated boards. The bill notably does not change the relationship between special districts and municipalities. Municipalities still have the authority to review service plans, and so recognizing that a lot of our members have a lot of different opinions around the way that special districts are governed, we decided to take a neutral position on that. So we will be watching the bill, but we will be neutral around that. And the last thing that I'll mention is perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl chemicals. I mentioned this last week. This bill hasn't been introduced yet, but in the draft that we saw, it would require all domestic wastewater treatment facilities to collect a biosolid sample to test for PFAS. We were concerned about the duplicity of this. CDPHE has already required the largest wastewater providers to, in their permits, in their discharge permits, to collect PFAS testing. I understand from the proponents that will be taken out of the bill. And so once that's introduced, I think this week or next week, we will be likely in a neutral position if that language has been taken out. And that's what I have. I'm happy to answer questions that anyone has.
Thank you, Heather. And as a reminder, I think we'll be taking questions at the end after we all give our report. I'll kick us off in the room here, and I'll start in the House with a tax bill. This House Bill 221024 is a bill that purports to extend the state sales tax exemption on public school projects to home rule municipalities. So essentially mandating that a home rule municipality could not tax the construction of a public school. And that also includes charter schools as well. And so CML's opposed to this legislation. We don't have a ton of members that actually utilize this tax. However, we do have really strict positions when it comes to home rule and our authority for taxation, as well as controlling what our tax base is. Unfortunately, the bill did pass out of the House this week in a bipartisan fashion, but CML will continue to oppose it and is looking to talking to leadership, I should say, in the Senate to express our concerns with the bill, as well as the individual members that also currently do the tax. So that's what we have for now. Still hoping we can defeat that legislation. And then again in House Bill 1051, which is the extension of the affordable housing tax credit. Right now, there is an existing tax credit that called the affordable housing tax credit that is usually used in conjunction with the federal low income housing tax credit. And so the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority administers that program, and it's led to several thousand units of affordable housing being constructed in Colorado. So what this bill does is not only extend the program for another several years, but it also expands the amount of funding to the program from 10 million to 15 million, which is certainly substantial. And so CML's been supportive of that program, and we will continue to support that bill. We testified in support in the House Local Transportation and Local Government Committee. That bill also needs to go through finance and then appropriations before it gets to the House floor, and it will be heard in finance on Monday. The chair of the committee is also one of the sponsors of the bill, so I do not expect there to be any issues with that passing finance on Monday. See, okay, House Bill 1152. This is a bill that extends the state into the relationship between public employers as well as private employers and their relationship with their employees and their policies. What the bill says right now, as introduced, is that a employer cannot take adverse action against an individual for using medical marijuana either on premises of the job site or after hours, and then, or within work hours, I should say, or taking adverse action for against an individual who's using retail marijuana after hours. The bill, CML opposes the state getting involved in the employee relationship, particularly for public employers, and this bill does that. So we do oppose it unless amended at the moment. What I am hearing is that the bill will likely be turned into a study. And when that happens, then we will remove our opposition. That bill is set to be heard in the Business Affairs and Labor Committee on March 10th. Senate Bill 23, let's head over to the Senate now, has to do with law enforcement utilizing deceptive tactics when interrogating juveniles. And for the purposes of this bill, when we're talking about juveniles, we are talking up to 18. The bill is coming from the Criminal Defense Bar and basically says that an officer or an agent, whoever is doing the custodial interrogation or the interrogation of the juvenile, cannot provide any false facts or beliefs to the, as amended, actually, I should say, cannot knowingly provide false facts or beliefs to the juvenile in order to get, a confession or something of that nature. The bill has been opposed generally by law enforcement. CML is opposed unless amended. We certainly are supportive of honesty from officers with regard to their contacts with juveniles, but the bill was very expansive to a lot of serious crimes. And so we're having conversations with the sponsors. The bill has been amended to say that the individual needs to knowingly provide false facts, and then it does clarify that it's a custodial interrogation. There is some other conflicting language in the bill that I think we would like to see cleaned up, and I'm still working on that. The bill, Senate Bill 23 has actually passed the Senate at this point. But on the Senate in second reading, there was an amendment that got on there that required the Peace Officer Standards and Trainings Board to provide training on this new standard should the bill pass, which is certainly something we are supportive of as well. So more to come on that as it moves into the House. Senate Bill 63, this is also known as the Property Ownership Fairness Act. What the bill aims to do as introduced is create kind of a takings process, if you will, at the local level. Right now, constitutionally, individuals do have takings arguments and they can make those in the legal system. What this bill says is that, and I'm going to be fairly general here, but a local government can make any kind of land use decision that may negatively affect someone's property values. And then if that occurs, they must basically submit the cost of the property owner back to them. This is a very difficult and scary precedent, I think, for local governments. We make a lot of land use decisions that could have a number of impacts, and the bill does not necessarily is not just limited to elected officials. It would also apply to any staff decisions or planning commission decisions as well. So we are very concerned with that. Additionally, another part of the bill prohibits anti-growth initiatives. Not initiatives, anti-growth policies, I should say. The intent is to prohibit like a ballot initiative or an ordinance that could be adopted by elected officials. And there's some question as to whether or not you can actually apply that to ballot initiatives. The bill was heard in State Affairs going on a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. The chair of the committee, Senator Julie Gonzalez, is very interested in the anti-growth discussion. And so at the moment, we've been kind of having discussions under the guise of this legislation. I think no matter what, the takings piece of the bill will come out. But from CML's perspective, we have concerns continuing to have discussions under Senate Bill 63, given its broad title and frankly, the sensitivity of the issue. This is not something, land use is complicated. There are a lot of different opinions and a lot of different people that need to be involved, including, certainly CML's municipal members that need to be at the table. And so this needs to be a long-term conversation rather than just something that we kind of figure out at the drop of a hat during the legislative session. So that bill has actually been scheduled for committee again. It was laid over for action when it was heard a couple weeks ago, and has been scheduled again for this coming Tuesday. I haven't confirmed whether that means the bill will go ahead and die or whether or not there is an attempt to amend the bill. I was under the impression that we would have several more stakeholder meetings in order to, if we were going to actually amend the bill. So it's my hope against all hopes that that bill will be dispensed with, if you will. Next, I want to talk about Senate Bill 97, and this is a whistleblower protection bill for employees. This is a bill, so initially the policy was adopted back in 2020 at the height of, right after COVID hit, when there was still a lot of, whether the people were still lacking PPE and the proper equipment, and there were a lot of concerns around there. There was a bill that was enacted that gave whistleblower protections to employees during a public health emergency. We were able to negotiate language in the bill that put the onus on the employee to prove that there had been either retaliation or some kind of negative effect due to them being, quote, a whistleblower. And then we were able to remove our opposition, given that it was a temporary bill. Now we have Senate Bill 97, which is actually going to make it a permanent policy, which is very concerning for us. A public health emergency is one thing because it's limited, but making it a permanent policy particularly given that there are some, there's no caps on damages and fees for public employers. We are opposed to that legislation. It's gone through its first committee in Business, Labor, and Technology in the Senate, and is parked in appropriations at the moment. And then two more things, I think. Oh, Senate Bill 113. That is a bill that aims to create a study and then regulate artificial intelligence use or facial recognition by law enforcement and private entities. There is an extensive task force that's created in the bill, and as introduced, a lot of concerning mandates on local law enforcement. The bill has been heavily amended. It went through its first committee on this past Wednesday in Senate Judiciary, and was heavily amended to not only beef up the task force, but to remove some of the barriers that were initially put on law enforcement in terms of the use of the technology. As amended, the Association of Chiefs of Police do support the bill. And I think a lot of law enforcement is removing their opposition. So as a result, I asked our board of directors that CML take a neutral position, which is where we are now. And then finally, I'll just wrap up quickly on an update, a collective bargaining update. I think you all probably have seen in the paper that the governor has been very clear about his intention that he will not, quote, not sign any legislation on collective bargaining unless it only applies to counties and higher education. I know that the proponents are not really interested in dividing their coalition on that, and so I think right now it's just kind of them deciding whether or not they want to run a bill that perhaps the governor won't sign, or run a bill that the governor could sign. So we shall see what that looks like going forward. So with that, I'll conclude my remarks, and then I can review next. Oh, Jacqueline, sorry.
Hello. Want to start with House Bill 1064, the flavor ban on tobacco and nicotine. This is going to be up in committee on March 9th, and CML is now in a neutral position on this bill. Again, this would be banning the sale, advertisement, and all of the above of anything that is flavored tobacco, nicotine, or any associated product such as that. House Bill 1093 is the bingo raffle update. We were able to work with the gaming towns as well as the gaming association to get the appropriate amendments to that bill to remove anything that would add any electronic devices to the bingo games, which would created some problems for our gaming towns because of the definition of a slot machine and whether they would be known as a slot machine. And so that was all removed. So it is, we are now in a neutral position on that bill. We were originally opposed. Now we're in a neutral position, and that is waiting for the Appropriations Committee. House Bill 1104 is the Power Line Trails bill. This bill we were opposed unless amended to, and a couple weeks ago in committee it did get all of the amendments that we requested, which would be removing the contractual language that could be onerous to local governments, exempting out municipal utilities as well as power providers, municipal power providers, and then also making a clarification on the upgrading of transmission lines so that you still have to notify when there is a transmission line upgrade. It was just some clarification language. So all of that was amended in committee. It this week did pass the House and is waiting to start its hearings in the Senate. So again, that's House Bill 1104. House Bill 1142 is the alcohol beverage extended service hours permit, sorry. And this bill, we are a support if amended position. This would allow for on-premises consumption. Currently, you can be open from 7 a.m. until 2 a.m. This would allow for local governments to choose if they would like to offer this extended services hours permit, and then then those establishments, if they wanted it, could apply for this extended hours permit. They could either be open earlier at 5 a.m. or they could stay open until 4 a.m. But you couldn't have both, so you can't be open from 5 a.m. until 4 a.m. We originally, the bill was going to be a statewide just blanket staying open until 4 a.m. and we requested that it be a local option. And so since the bill is a local option and we are supporting it if amended, the amendment we are requesting, which is going to be added in committee, states that the bill does say you have to get approval from both your local and the state licensing authorities, but we want to ensure that you get your local authority approval first and then submit that approval along with your application to the state licensing authority so that there's no confusion. You're not getting approved by the state and not by the local. So there is language that's going to be put in to ensure that you have to submit your approved local licensing authority permit with your application to the state. So again, that is in committee on March 10th. Senate Bill 118 is encourage geothermal energy use. We are in an opposed unless amended position on this one. What it would do is put geothermal energy in line with the way that solar is treated in the statute. The reason that we are opposed unless amended to this is because we do not like caps on permitting fees, which it would give the same caps on permitting fees like the solar to geothermal energy, as well as it would require master plans for the local jurisdictions to include geothermal energy. We are working with the sponsor and other stakeholders in the process to ensure that the master planning piece is not a mandate. And then we've requested that the permit piece also be taken out. Not sure if that one's going to be quite as palatable as the master plan piece, but we are working on trying to get the master plan clarified that it's not a mandate to include that. So that has been laid over. That was in committee this week. It was laid over to be working on amendments. And then Senate Bill 120, the regulation of kratom processors. This is in committee on Wednesday this coming week, the Senate Finance Committee. We're in a neutral position on this one. We are requesting one amendment to ensure that, so what this bill does, it would regulate kratom processors, which kratom is a substance that that individuals take or ingest for a variety of purposes. It is similar to an opioid or a marijuana or something like that. Currently, it's not regulated though, and so this bill would put a regulation that you couldn't purchase it if you were under 18. It would have to be pure kratom that you're purchasing, and if there are any adverse effects from the kratom usage, they would have to be reported to the state. And so what we are requesting is to just ensure that our local jurisdictions can still enact ordinances that are more strict than what is in this language. So that that amendment should be added in committee on Wednesday. The final thing I want to discuss is the undergrounding transparency bill. We are still actively working on that with our stakeholders as well as with the sponsor. We are still collecting information from our member cities and towns as to what their experiences have been with their utilities when undergrounding, as well as just trying to hone in on what the details look like, to give you more of details of what that bill looks like. If you have not heard about it yet, it is when a local jurisdiction is undergrounding their utility lines and any part of it is being paid for by the public jurisdiction. We are looking to have competitive bidding in that process, as well as fully detailed cost disclosures, because currently it sounds like we are not receiving those from our utilities. So that's what we are working on at this point. And if you have any feedback or questions or anything on that, I am happy to answer that, or happy to follow up with you later if you want to talk through that as well. So thank you.
All right, and if there's no questions, we'll just move right along. First, I want to update about two bills from last week. The first one is House Bill 1067, which would require municipal courts to hold a bail hearing for a person who's been detained within 48 hours. This would align municipal courts with the current district court law that they have to follow. We were successful in amending this bill to make a few clarifications. The first being that the 48-hour clock wouldn't start for municipal courts until the jail gives the municipal court notice that a person has been detained. The second thing, we added some clarifying language that would make clear that if the court doesn't hold the hearing due to the detainee's actions, or if the detainee has a behavioral health problem, is intoxicated, things of that nature, then the court is not liable for those for not complying with state law. The third and I think most important aspect of our change is that we pushed out the implementation date. The introduced version, it was set to go into effect in October of this year. We got that pushed out to January of next year to allow municipalities to prepare and budget for in the event that they believe that they need to have additional days of court. So that was amended and is in House appropriations currently, and it should be there for some time, but we're just watching that very closely now in a neutral position. The second bill that we testified on last week is House Bill 1131, which changes the jurisdictional age for a juvenile who can be charged with a crime from 10 to 13 years of age. The intention is also to apply this jurisdictional change to municipal courts. This bill heard hours of testimony last Wednesday. I think that we ended at about 10 p.m. And the committee decided not to take action on the bill to allow the sponsors and the proponents of the bill to stakehold this jurisdictional change a bit more. Some amendments that have been asked for are to exclude certain crimes from this jurisdictional change, including certain sexual assault crimes and crimes of violence. There's also an amendment that would establish a working group to further vet this jurisdictional change and make sure that there's not a gap in services for children who are committing such offenses, but need treatment, mental health treatment, behavioral health treatment, things of that nature. So those are ideas that are currently being worked on, and we are in talk with the proponents and members of the committee to try and make this bill better for our municipal courts. With that, I'll move on to what happened this week. Most notably, Senate Bill 99 was heard by the Senate Judiciary Committee last week, yesterday, not last week. Senate Bill 99 creates an automatic sealing process for district court criminal justice records. It essentially allows it doesn't require a person to file a motion with a district court in order to get their record sealed. It makes it an automatic process. For municipal courts purposes, we are not a part of this automatic process. However, this record sealing is a really complicated part of statute, and it's really convoluted in how it's written. So we were working very closely with the proponents and the bill sponsors to make sure that it's clear what a person needs to do to get their record sealed in municipal court. So we were able to get amendments on the bill for those purposes. Additionally, we had some concerns about whether a person would have to pay restitution or not in order to get their record sealed, and the proponents agreed to make that change to the bill. So now, with the bill amended, you do have to pay your restitution in full before you're eligible to seal your record in both district and municipal court. So there were 13 amendments on that bill yesterday, and it passed out unanimously, and it's headed to Senate Appropriations. And CML can be supportive of that bill as it's in its current form. Two bills, one bill that was scheduled this week as well as Senate Bill 123, which would allow a person to apply to ask the Department of Revenue for refunds if they are charged with a late fee or any penalty with regards to their vehicle titling or registration. CML is opposed to this bill because it's not clear how local governments highway users tax fund would be kept whole with a person who would apply for a refund to the Department of Revenue. That Department of Revenue would then have to coordinate with each county and municipality to ensure that the HUTF revenue is whole. So we are just strictly opposed to this bill. The State Affairs Committee in the Senate took testimony on this bill, but laid the bill over for action. And it's been rescheduled for next Tuesday. So I believe that the committee will take action on Tuesday, and hopefully the bill will be postponed indefinitely. Another bill that was originally scheduled this week to be heard in the House, kind of shifting gears a little bit, is House Bill 1138. And this bill is similar to rulemaking process that the Air Quality Control Division underwent this summer, but it's a little bit different. It would provide tax incentives to private sector employers to create plans to decrease the amount that employees have to travel to and from work. And those plans could include offering bus passes, creating more work from home and flex schedules, encourage ride sharing opportunities. But again, those tax incentives would strictly apply to private sector employers. The bill also does create some mandates for large employers, which is defined in the bill as an employer of over 100 employees. And this would include municipal employers. Those mandates would include having to offer certain transportation fringe benefits that are outlined in federal tax law, and have to submit survey results about how their employees get to and from work to the Department of Transportation each year. In any case, CML is opposed to the mandates in that bill. The bill was originally scheduled to be heard yesterday in committee, but has been rescheduled. And as I understand, the bill will be heavily amended, and our hope is that those mandates will be removed from the bill, in which case CML can drop our opposition from that piece of legislation. On to next week, CML will be testifying in opposition to House Bill 1106, which would preempt local governments from controlling concealed carry permits on public school property. Current law allows local governments to regulate concealed carry permits, and this would be just a blatant preemption of local control, and for that reason CML is opposed to that piece of legislation and will be testifying as such on Monday, the 28th, and that is being heard in the House State Civic and Military Affairs Committee. And the last thing I'll touch on is House Bill 1159, which is being heard in the Energy and Environment Committee on Thursday, March 3rd. This bill would create a center for recycling products, market for recycled products, in CDPHE. Essentially, local governments and everyone in the state who recycles has to send those products out of state or even internationally. So this would create a market within the state of Colorado. Similar programs have been initiated in North and South Carolina, and they have seen great success in terms of economic development and job growth, as well as creating a sustainable marketplace for recycled products. It will help our local governments recycle and help meet their climate change reduction or greenhouse gas reduction goals and climate change goals. And it will also create jobs throughout the state. So CML is in support of that bill and will be testifying in the Energy and Environment Committee on Thursday. Those are all of the bills for me right now, but I'm happy to answer any questions, and I think that applies to all of us. We're happy to answer any questions.
No, just you.
Just me.
You're looking answering my question. No, please, I know we went through a lot of information, so if you need us to repeat anything, or you jumped on late, just let us know, and we're happy to give you a quick update.
Thank you. We've had a couple questions come through, so we can go ahead and get started on those. The first asks, the stated bill about the 48 hours starting for the courts once the jail gets thrown, courts receive the information. Does the jail have a timeline for when they need to have the information? I'm concerned about a delay.
I understand that question. There's currently no specific timeline for the jail to provide notice as the bill has been amended. Yeah, and I think Megan Dollar has more intel on those processes.
Yeah. Megan McKillop's been lucky enough to take over municipal courts for me. So there's an incentive by the sheriff to probably let a municipal court know as soon as possible that someone is in custody on a municipal ordinance violation or a misdemeanor equivalent, because the sheriff, one of their big concerns is overcrowding in their jails. And so the quicker that they let the municipality know that they have someone in custody, and that starts that 48-hour clock, then it's more likely that either that person will then be let out on a personal recognizance bond, or the municipality will have to hold their bond quick.
Yes. Thank you for the assist there.
Thank you. The next one concerns House Bill 1064. It asks, I understand the policy committee voted to oppose this bill. Can I ask why?
Yes, the policy committee did vote to oppose the bill. There were some concerns about local control and some revenue concerns, as well as the lack of exemptions in the introduced language. We actually just had the position was changed back to the neutral position, which was the staff recommendation to begin with during the board meeting this morning.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know our policy process, we have a policy committee that makes recommendations to our CML executive board of directors. So typically after a policy committee meeting, the board will meet 1 week later and then take up those recommendations. The majority of the recommendations they recommended and agreed with, but there was an opinion on our board that we should actually just be neutral on that legislation. So CML's position is actually neutral, not opposed.
Perfect, thank you. Next question asks, have you heard when a draft bill may be introduced which would remove the registration requirements for managers at certain liquor establishments?
Introduction date, no, but we have received a draft of that bill, and we're working with the proponents on that to give feedback from that and see if we can work with them on that language. So the draft has not been introduced yet, but we did just this week get some draft language from them. Yes.
Wonderful, thank you.
I understand we have lots of feedback.
Yes, we have lots of feedback. Yes. So we are working on that heavily.
Perfect, thank you. Next one, how does House Bill 1131, if at all, affect the 48-hour clock in House Bill 21-1288, which is set to take effect on April 1st, 2022, related to when the bond hearing must be held within 48 hours of when the arrestee arrives at the jail or holding facility?
Okay, so they're two completely separate pieces of legislation, and what 1131 does is make it so a municipal court or a juvenile district court cannot charge a child under the age of 13. So I don't know that there would be a large impact other than the person of that age cannot be arrested and detained under House Bill 1131 if it passes. And if there's any more clarification I need to provide, please let me know.
Awesome, thank you. This looks like the last one that has come in thus far. Can you clarify again the mandates on House Bill 221138? How would this impact local government employers if passed as written?
Yes. So the large employers, including municipal employers, would have to conduct a survey, which will be created by the Department of Transportation, the Colorado Energy Office, and metropolitan planning organizations. So an employer will have to conduct that survey of all of its employers and submit that survey each year by April 30th to the Department of Transportation. The municipal employers will also have to offer some sort of transportation fringe benefit. That can be like a bus pass or something that would provide an alternative for an employer to, or employee, excuse me, to get to and from work. One other mandate that the bill does make is if a municipal employer has a parking lot or parking facility, that they would be mandated to offer a cash allowance to an employee in lieu of a parking space. And this really does impact some of our larger members, larger employers that do have parking agreements and parking contracts for their employees. There's also a section in the bill which would provide funding for transportation planning organizations to implement some of these things, some of these requirements, but it doesn't provide any money to local governments to help implement these mandates.
Thank you. Megan McKillop, there's a clarification on the 48-hour question. The asker meant House Bill 1067. Does that change your answer?
Can you repeat the original question?
Yeah, if you could repeat the original question, then I might be able to answer it.
Yep. So how does House Bill 1067 affect the 48-hour clock in House Bill 211288, which is set to take effect on April 1st, related to when the bond hearing must be held within 48 hours of when the arrestee arrives at the jail or holding facility?
Okay, excellent question. So House Bill 1280 was passed last year, and it has a similar requirement. A detainee has to be seen within 48 hours by a district court if they're detained to hear their first bond hearing. The intention of the sponsors was to include municipal courts into that language. However, that did not happen. So the sponsors of 1280 are coming back this year with House Bill 1067, which would apply a similar requirement to municipal courts. CML worked very closely with the bill sponsors and other proponents to not have the same mandates that are outlined in 1280 that do apply to state district court. So it's House Bill 1067 is amending a area of statute that only applies to municipal courts. So one reason that was really important to CML is so that the 48-hour requirement would apply to people being held on a municipal hold only. So municipal courts would have to adhere to that 48-hour requirement for people being held on municipal holds. And I think that was a really important distinction between this bill and House Bill 1280 and the requirements that are in district court.
And it provides a lot more flexibility.
And it does provide a lot more flexibility. Megan mentioned the ability for a detainee to be released on a personal recognizance bond. So municipal courts still have the opportunity to use that as an option and have that person come back for their court date at a later time. So I think just to get to the benefit for municipal courts, it just allows that flexibility. And for a majority of our members, a majority of municipal courts, nothing will change.
Perfect, thank you. Looks like that is all of our questions for today. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending today. We really appreciate all of your time. And if you would like to stay up to date on legislative happenings throughout the session, you're more than welcome to sign up for future State House reports. The next one is going to take place on March 11th at 12 p.m. So please feel free to reach out to me with any questions. And please have a great day. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, everybody. Have
Thanks.
a great day. Have a great weekend.
Bye.